All right, on behalf of the defense.
Thank you, Your Honor. On behalf of the defense, we call
Well,
Schwab.
I apologize. I guess that's what I'm saying for the record. We are back on the record. Case number. Two two four four 89401 versus Kate Cole. All right, on behalf of the defense.
Thank you, Your Honor. Defense will call Schwab Jones.
Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Yes. All right, Nancy.
Good afternoon, Ms. Jones. Good afternoon. Can you just, for the record, just say your name, please?
Sure.
Okay, and we are going to go very quickly. Can you, on May 13th of 2021, do you recall being present at 17850 Mount Elliott in the city of Detroit?
Yes.
Okay, do you know what's located at that location?
Rental home.
Okay, and why were you at that location on that date?
It was my dad's reason.
Okay, and while you were there, did you come into contact with someone by the name of Latoya Grant?
Yeah.
On the date of that incident, who did you know Latoya Grant to be?
My dad's, girlfriend's daughter.
Okay, so, had it been represented to you that Ms. Grant, did Ms. Grant identify herself as your sister, do you know?
I guess.
Okay, and when's the first time you met Ms. Grant?
She was a little girl,
Okay,
4 or 5.
okay, and then prior to the date of this incident that brings us to court today, when's the last time you had seen Ms. Grant?
Prior to my dad. Now, can you, I need you to speak more into the mic, or it's adjustable, because I'm having a hard time hearing you. Well, my dad was pronounced deceased. I got a call, and we all was at his apartment.
Okay, so.
Prior to that.
Okay, so that was about how long before the date of the recast? Okay, okay, all right. So would you say that you had a good relationship with Latoya Grant at the time of this incident?
I mean, I really didn't know her,
Okay,
but as, you know, my dad's girlfriend's daughter.
okay, all right. So the date of the recast, at the time of the recast, do you remember, did you come into contact with Latoya Grant?
Yeah.
Okay, and did something happen between the two of you?
Yes, we got into a fight.
Okay, can you tell us how that fight started?
We came into the repast. She came in with some girls
Okay,
saying, cussing and fucking.
okay, was that directed toward you, do you know?
Yeah.
Okay, and did you have a response or a reaction?
Judge, I'm gonna just leave it. Overruled.
Did you have a response or a reaction to whatever Ms. Don't tell us what she was saying, but did you have a response or a reaction? Okay, and then what happens after you?
We started fighting.
How did that fight start?
She tried to rush me,
And then what happened?
and I defended myself.
Okay, so was she alone when she
No.
tried to rush you? Okay, was there somebody else with her?
Some young lady,
Okay, so how many ladies tried to rush you?
her and another young lady.
Okay, and so then a fight happens?
Yeah.
Can you tell us about how long that fight lasted?
Not really.
Okay, all right. Okay, can you tell us how the fight ended?
We just kind of,
Okay,
commotion.
okay. And so what did you do, or did the two of you just stop fighting?
It was so much commotion. We was fighting.
Can you describe the commotion, please?
She came at me. Of course, I defended myself. It was another young lady. She jumped in, and then it makes a fight. My daughter, Caitlin, got involved. And yeah, I just remember after we kind of stopped fighting, a chair was, toilet through a chair.
Okay, and do you remember what happened after the chair was thrown?
My daughter, Caitlin, I keep saying my daughter. Caitlin and I were about to leave, and some guys came in.
Okay,
And, I don't even know if this is real name, but Junior, he grabbed me and was like, just pulling me out the building.
okay, and then did you leave the building?
Yep, we got in my daughter's car.
Okay, did you leave the building alone?
Oh, no, I got with my daughter.
Okay, and did you say that you got into a car?
Yeah, for a truck,
Okay,
her black truck.
okay,
Excuse me, I apologize. You might continue.
okay. If you remember, okay, so I'm just asking you, do you recall seeing any children in the venue while you were there?
No,
Okay, so how long were you at the venue before the fight started?
not that long.
Okay, were you there 10 minutes, half an hour?
Less than a half, definitely less than half an hour.
Okay, all right. And do you recall if, you may have already told me this, but do you recall if Ms. Grant was there when you arrived or?
No,
Okay. So do you recall seeing Ms. Grant arrive?
yes, when she came in the door, she started saying,
Okay. Do you remember if anyone was with her when she arrived?
it was the girl.
Okay, all right. Anybody else? Did you remember seeing her arrive with her? Okay, all right, I'm nothing further.
Cross-examination.
Yes, sir.
Good afternoon, Ms. Jones.
Yeah.
Good afternoon, Ms. Jones. I just want to ask a couple questions based on the Lisa's questions. And if you don't understand or need me to rephrase my question, just let me know, okay?
Okay.
All right. So you testified that Latoya Grant is your father's girlfriend's daughter?
Yeah,
Okay, so she's not your sister?
not to my knowledge. I haven't got any proof yet.
You haven't got any proof that she's your sister?
Right.
Okay, but you testified that you met her around when she was 4 or 5 years old?
Yeah, the first time I ever saw her.
The first time you ever saw her? Okay, and that was quite some time ago, I'm assuming.
Oh,
Okay, and you testified that as soon as you walked into this rental hall, there was a fight between you and Ms. Grant?
yeah. Well, not as soon as I walked in, but I was there.
Okay, so is it your testimony that Ms. Grant was there before you came to the home?
She came out.
She came after you, okay. And who were you there with at that time?
My grandmother and my daughter, Kayla.
Okay, and was anyone else with you?
No,
Okay, and you testified that there was a lot of commotion going on within the venue when there was a fight.
with the fight going on, yeah.
Okay, so there was a lot going on when you and Ms. Grant were fighting at the time?
Yeah, and
So
the other young lady.
okay, so there was 3 people fighting at the time?
Well, they was trying to jump me, both of them.
Okay, and you testified that you defended yourself, so I'm assuming you fought back,
Yeah.
correct? Okay, so when this fighting was going on, you really didn't see what was going on around you because 3 people were attacking you at one time?
Not for people.
2 people were attacking you at one time,
Yeah.
so you couldn't really see what was going on around you,
I
correct?
saw my daughter jumping, was helping me.
She was helping you?
Yeah.
Okay, but other than that, could you see anyone else around in the venue at the time?
I mean, I wasn't paying attention. I was just paying attention to what was going to fight.
Okay, so you weren't really paying attention as to what was going on in the surrounding area, correct?
No,
Okay, so if you weren't paying attention, you didn't know who else was in the surrounding area, correct?
I knew who was in the building at the time.
But my question is, in the surrounding area where the fight was going on, you didn't know who was all around, did you?
No,
Okay. And you testified that you were escorted out of the rental hall?
I was pulled out.
You were pulled out by whom?
Junior.
And do you know who Junior is? Is he related to you?
No, not to my knowledge.
Not to your knowledge, okay. And where was your daughter at the time you were being pulled out of the venue?
We both left together.
So when you were being pulled out of the venue, where was she?
We was walking out together, you know, leaving together.
So while you were being pulled out, she was with you?
Yeah.
Okay. And when you were pulled out of the venue, did you call the police at any time?
No,
You did not?
we
Okay.
just got in the truck and,
So you just left?
uh,
Okay. And do you know, well, strike that. You testified that Ms. Brent walked into the venue and she was cussing and fussing about something, right?
right.
Okay. And at the time, where were you standing?
I was standing up about to put some tablecloth, was about to put tablecloths on the table.
Okay.
So I was standing up at the table.
Okay. And if you recall, where did the fight start?
Right at that first table there, or the second table, probably the first table, between the first and the second table, because my grandmother was sitting at the first table, and my daughter was sitting there talking to my grandmother.
Okay. Now, how far are you from the entrance from where Ms. Brent is coming in?
Maybe as far as there's a table where they're sitting.
Okay, so you weren't that far from the entrance where
Right.
Ms. Brent came in. Okay, and where was Ms. Coker at this time?
She was sitting down talking to my grandmother,
So was that near you or the entrance?
but at the table.
At
They
the
were
table?
sitting at the table talking, I was standing up, because I was about to put the tablecloth on the table.
Okay. And how was your relationship with your daughter, Ms. Coker? You have a very good relationship with her? Okay. And did you know anyone else that was at the venue?
Besides my grandmother,
Right. So everyone else, you did not know who the people were at the venue?
I knew of them, but I didn't know them.
Who did you know of them to be?
My dad dated her mother. At the time, my dad and their mother both was on drugs.
Whose mother?
Latoya's mother and my dad, when they were dating, they were both on drugs.
Okay.
So my understanding, Latoya and her sisters and them got taken by the state.
Okay,
So I don't know. I didn't know them. I mean, my dad, people never talked about them. You know, my dad would mention them every now and then, but I don't know them.
okay,
I knew of them.
okay. Now, did you have, outside of Ms. Coker and, is it your grandmother?
My dad? My dad is the one with the repast for.
Okay, so you were there in attendance with Ms. Coker, and then you mentioned your grandmother or your mother?
That was my grandmother's, my dad's mom.
Okay, so your dad's mom, you and Ms. Coker were the three people that were together at the repast. Did you have any other family members there at the repast?
We had, well, I'm gonna say no. It was two other young ladies, but they were back in back getting the food together.
Did you, or were you related to the two young ladies?
Again, it's one of them situations that I know of them, I've heard of them, but they're not really. I only have one sister. My mom and my dad had myself and my sister.
Okay, was your
All
sister,
my sisters and them.
she did not know?
No,
So everybody that was at the venue, from your understanding, you did not know,
I knew of them.
but you didn't, you weren't related to them, I should say.
Well, as far as I'm concerned,
Okay. I have no further questions, sir. Amy, read it right?
No, thank you, Your Honor.
Ma'am, who is Junior that put you out of the repast?
he's here in the courtroom.
Okay. Who is Junior that put you out of the repast?
Junior is far as I know, Junior is somebody that my dad calls on.
Okay, and then I guess I'm confused, so I just need you to help me get unconfused. You're at the repast for your biological father. Who was in charge of the repast?
Michelle Montgomery.
Ma'am, I don't know who that is. Can you tell me?
Somebody saying that my dad is her dad.
Okay, so another person who claims to be your sister. They were in charge of the repast. Why were you putting a tablecloth on the table?
Because we had just got to the building, to the repast, and they had just opened up the door, so nothing was done. So we knew people were coming. Michelle and her mom was back there trying to get the food together. So I was trying to help out by putting the tablecloth. We was trying to, get it to get, presentable.
Okay. And then you, at your biological father's repast, you are telling me that you only knew the two people sitting at the table with you?
My daughter and my grandmother. And Michelle and her mom.
And then when you were removed from your biological father's repast by a person that you're calling Junior, who claims to be your brother, you never called the police?
No, we just left.
Okay, thank you. Any questions based on my question?
I do have a question.
Well, you don't go first, because it's
Oh, I'm
Mr.
Sorry.
Witness.
So based upon the judge's question, so, if you know, did LaShara and LaToya have the same mother?
No.
Okay. All right. And was the, based upon the judge's question, did you expect other people to be at the repast that you knew?
Yes.
Okay, all right. And so there was a funeral someplace?
Objection,
Okay.
that's outside the scope.
Actually,
It might be.
okay.
I don't know where she's going with it.
So the court was inquiring as to whether or not Ms. Jones knew other people
At the repast.
at the repast at the time of at the repast.
Right.
Okay, so what I'm trying to get to is where.
It
people
wasn't
coming.
coming, but that didn't,
Okay. Okay, all right, well, that's where
Okay. On behalf of the people.
Yes. So Ms. Jones, the people at the repast, were they at the funeral?
Yeah.
Okay. And did you have other family members at the funeral?
You doing the same thing that Caesar just did.
You are.
I know. It was them.
No further questions.
Okay, thank you. All right, ma'am, you may step down. Anything further on behalf of the, no, she has to wait no home. Well, I shouldn't say she has to wait no home. Is this witness released? Nobody intends to question her anymore. Otherwise, she has to wait no home.
I'm not gonna have anything further than this.
All right, well, if she wants to, she's free to say it forward. Anything further on behalf of the defense?
Defense at this time will call Caleb Coker.
All right, Ms. Coker, stand. State your name.
Caleb Denise Coker.
Ms. Coker, do you understand that you have a right to remain silent? Do you understand that the choice to testify is yours?
Yes.
Is it your intention to give up your right to remain silent and testify in court today?
Yes.
Do you understand that everything that you say, court is going to use in its decision with respect to your guilt or innocence?
Right.
Has anyone threatened you in any way or promised you anything that was not placed on the record to get you to give up your right to remain silent?
No.
I understand that you probably spoke with your lawyer about your intention to testify. However, my question to you is that, do you understand that your decision to testify is yours and yours alone?
Yes.
After consulting with your attorney about testifying, is it your personal decision to give up your right to remain silent and testify in this case?
Yes.
Raise your right hand for me, please. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to help you God? You may come. Ms. Stevenson.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon, ma'am. Please say your name for the record.
Lynise Coker.
Okay, so Ms. Coker, let's just go right into it. We've heard the testimony about the repass and date and location of it, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so on the date of May 13th, 2021, were you in the company of LaToya Grant?
I'm sorry.
Were you in the company of LaToya Grant?
Yes.
Okay. Do you know an individual by the name of Micah Bass?
No.
Okay. On the date of this incident, did you strike Micah Bass?
No.
Okay. Can you tell us about the incident on May 13th, 2021 over there?
Okay, so, the doors had just opened. My mom, my great grandmother, we walked in, LaShare was there getting food ready. Her mom asked us to do the decoration as far as, tablecloth and just decorate a little bit, trying to get it to look nice.
Okay, so let me stop you. So you arrived at the venue with whom?
My mother, my great grandmother.
Okay, and when you get there, is anybody else there when you arrive?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Did you just indicate that you had a conversation with LaShare?
Yes, that was like 5 minutes after getting there.
Okay, so when you first got there, LaShare was you.
No.
Okay, so LaShare arrives with whom?
I'm sorry?
Who did LaShare arrive at the venue with?
Yes, she arrived with her mother.
Okay, and so then what happens when they get there?
She gets there, she say, hey, I got pop, water, and stuff in my vehicle, can y'all grab it and start throwing tablecloths on the table.
And then what happens?
My mom began to do a tablecloth, I kind of sat down, got my grandmother some water, talked to her, and we were conversating.
Okay, so at some point, does LaToya Grant arrive at the venue?
Yes, LaToya Grant and another individual,
Okay.
lady,
Do you know who that other lady was?
I don't.
Okay, and so what happened, does anything happen after they arrive?
LaToya arrived rowdy, saying, get the F out while you here, just cussing and fussing. She walked in,
Do you know who she was,
irate,
do you know who she was talking to?
my mother.
Okay, and so then what happened?
They exchanged words,
Okay,
they got into an altercation, my mother, the other young lady.
so your mother, the person that LaToya came with,
No, yes, the person LaToya came with,
and LaToya,
and LaToya.
you said they got into an altercation?
Yes, ma'am.
And then what happened?
I was sitting down, I got up, I went to break the fight up, like I was in the midst of it. I got hit a few times,
What happened?
I hit back,
Mhm.
and the fight just continued.
And then what happened?
We separated, someone threw a chair, and I stepped back and I was like, who the F, threw the, you know, I asked who threw the chair.
Yeah.
LaToya was still fighting, they were still, you know, LaToya and my mother were still fighting.
Okay,
So I ran over to break that fight up.
and then what happened?
A group of guys walked in.
Okay,
Mhm.
did you know any of them?
One,
Okay, and then what happened?
he grabbed my mother. I asked him to grab my things and I said, we can go.
And then what happened?
We left.
Okay. All right, so on the date of this incident, that repass, did you hit Micah Bass?
No, ma'am.
Okay, all right. I don't have anything further.
Ms. Ritter, cross-examination.
Yes, Judge. Good afternoon, Ms. Coker. Ms. Coker, I'm just gonna ask a couple questions, following up on the Stevenson's questions, and if you don't understand or you need to repeat, just let me know, okay?
Okay.
All right, so who is LaShara?
LaShara is, I guess you could say she's she's one that claims she's a,
Okay, so who, you?
yeah,
Okay, have you met her before?
no,
Okay, so you never met her before
No.
is it your grandma?
I
I'm sorry,
never,
let me just finish the question. So you never met her before your grandfather's funeral?
no,
Okay, you didn't know who she was before your grandfather's
No.
funeral? But she started to ask you to decorate the table to get pop out of her car?
Yes,
Is that your
ma'am.
testimony? Okay. And you testified that there were some guys present at the funeral? Or I'm
No,
sorry, the repast. You testified that there were some guys there that you didn't know.
correct,
Okay, so the only people that you knew at this repast were your mom and your great grandmother?
correct.
Okay. And Ms. Grant, have you met her prior to the funeral?
No, you have to let her finish her question. You have to. Ms. Ritter, what's your question?
Thank you, Judge. So, I lost my question.
You said, did you know somebody before the funeral or something?
Thank you. Did you know Ms. Grant before the funeral ran for your grandma?
No,
Okay, you never met her before?
no,
Okay. And you testified that there were other people at the repast?
other people as in who?
Other people at the repast?
Yes,
Okay. And you testified that there weren't any children there?
no,
So you didn't see any children at the repast?
no, ma'am.
Your Honor, at this time, I share my screen.
Okay. I got the meeting locked, hold on, cause I didn't want. Let's see. You know, it seems to be making phone calls that she shouldn't be making,
Yes, Your Honor.
so you should be able to get in now, Ms. Ritter. Did you call them other two people?
No, Your Honor.
I know, you've been busy, I mean, I know,
But I will, but I will.
sometimes I have unreasonable expectations.
No, that's not one of those, how we do that.
Sometimes I have unreasonable expectations, ma'am.
Just want to get it.
That's why I can tell Mrs. Flanagan some, which thing of the 10 things that I just blurted out, are you doing?
You just want to get it done, since I get it.
Just let me know tomorrow, I mean, if you could reach them, I mean, it's only 2 of them, that's why I said.
I continue.
You may.
Okay, Ms. Coker, I want you to look at that screen up in the courtroom. Is that a clear depiction of the repast, the hall?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that a yes?
Yeah,
That is a clear depiction of the repast?
yeah,
Okay, you don't see the little girl standing next to, that adult in the video?
yes, I see her now.
Okay, but your testimony that there were no little kids at that repast?
Yeah, I didn't see her come in at the time of the fight, man. She wasn't there when the fight started.
You didn't see who came?
I'm saying she wasn't, the fight, no one was at the venue before the fight started. That's what you guys are feeling through, like this happened before the repast started, this was the setup.
So, okay, let me clarify.
Mhm.
Can I stop sharing my screen?
Yes,
So during the fight, you were at the repast, correct?
Yes,
That's what you
ma'am.
testified to. And you testified there were other people at the repast, correct?
yes, ma'am.
You testified there were other people present during the fight, correct?
The people that I named, yes, ma'am.
Okay, and you just saw the monitor on the screen with the little girl on the screen, you're saying that she wasn't at the repast?
I'm not saying she wasn't at the repast, I'm saying at the time of the setup, when the fight started and the fight ended, no one was inside the repast, because they were all at the cemetery coming over.
Okay, so,
The fight didn't happen at the repast, it happened during the setup. Is that making sense to you?
it happened at the hall though, correct?
It happened at the hall,
Okay,
yeah,
and you're saying that nobody was there during the setup?
exactly, besides my great grandmother, my mother,
Okay,
LaShare, her mother, LaToya Grant, and a sister of hers, I guess.
okay, so when did other people start coming to the repast?
After the fight was broken up, the guys walked in, but the fight was over, like, the fight was over. It wasn't like, it wasn't people there, the fight was over.
So there was nobody there after the fight, everyone left, is that your testimony?
I'm saying, we left, when we left, the people that I named were still there, people were coming. So nobody was in the venue as the fight was happening.
Okay, so who dragged you out if nobody was in the venue?
I'm saying they came in the midst of the fight stopping. The fight stopped.
So
Hands off.
I have an objection to mischaracterization
Yeah.
of testimony, Your Honor. I did not hear this witness testify that anybody dragged her out of anywhere.
I rephrase my question.
Okay.
How did you leave the venue?
I walked out.
Okay, how did your mom leave the venue?
She was pulled off. She was pulled out because they were still yelling verbally. They were going back and forth verbally.
Okay, so the person who pulled your mom out, where were they during the altercation?
They weren't in the building. They walked in. And then it was an altercation going on. You know, like it was broken up. They were verbally going back and forth like F you, da 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 da. And Junior, which is Albert Junior, he walked in and he grabbed my mother.
In the midst of a verbal altercation?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so who broke up the fight?
That was my position. I was breaking up the fight.
Okay, so you didn't jump in the
And
fight?
I was hit in the midst of it. So yes, I was defending myself as well.
Okay, so you were involved in the fight?
Yes, ma'am.
You broke up the fight after?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And at any time, did you call the police?
No, I didn't.
Okay. And how long did the fight last?
About 20 minutes.
So about 20 minutes you were fighting and nobody from the cemetery came to the repast?
No, ma'am.
Okay. I have no further questions, Judge.
Can you redirect?
So, at any time other than when you're involved trying to break up this fight,
Mhm.
does Latoya Grant, did Latoya Grant hit you in that process?
No, ma'am.
Okay, did Latoya, to your recollection, did Latoya Grant ever hit you?
No, ma'am.
Okay, thank you, I don't have any.
I have a couple of questions. To your knowledge, the deceased person was your biological grandfather, correct? And then you went to the funeral for your biological grandfather, but you didn't go to the cemetery for your biological grandfather, correct? And then you went to the place where the repast was gonna take place. And a strange lady that you've never met, told you that she was your aunt and asked you to put tablecloths on the table. Correct. Okay. That's all my questions. Any question based on my question?
No, thank you, Your Honor.
Ms. Ritter?
Okay.
All right, ma'am, you missed it. Anything further on behalf of the defense?
Defense rests, Your Honor.
Any rebuttal on behalf of the people?
No rebuttal at this time, Judge.
Are we ready for closing argument?
Yes, Your Honor. All right.
Defense ready, Your Honor.
Ms. Ritter, thank you, Your Honor. So, Your Honor, the court heard the testimony from Latoya Grant, who was the mother of the actual complainant, Ms. Michael Bass in this case. And Ms. Grant's testimony is that on May 13th of 2021, there was a funeral being held for her father, and she proceeded to repass at a hall located on Mount Lily in the city of Detroit. Ms. Bryant testified that at the repast, she came into contact with her sister, Ms. Sharon Jones, who was one of the witnesses that testified on behalf of the defense. And Ms. Bryant testified to the court truthfully that she began to get into a verbal and then physical altercation with Ms. Jones. At that time, Ms. Bryant testified that in the midst of that altercation, she notices the defendant at some point, Ms. Caitlin Coker, approach her 2-year-old daughter, Michael Bass, who was standing in front of her watching, unfortunately, this fight between these family members at a repast happened. And at that time, Ms. Coker, Ms. Bryant testified, open-handedly slapped her in her face. And at that time, she also testified truthfully that she then stopped fighting with Ms. Jones and approached Ms. Coker and began an altercation with Ms. Coker, Your Honor. Now, there were pictures that were submitted to the court, people exhibit 1 through 3, and Ms. Grant testified as to the injuries from the pictures as to the open hand slap from Ms. Coker to her daughter, Michael Bass. Your Honor, the witness in this case, Ms. Grant, she testified truthfully to the court. She was honest seeming, she told the court what happened. She even told the court that there was, in fact, an altercation between her and Ms. Jones that started the whole thing at the repast. She truthfully testified that during the altercation that she notices Ms. Coker approach her daughter and slap her, and that's when she then continued the altercation with Ms. Coker. Your Honor, the testimony in the picture that corroborate the testimony from Ms. Grant were submitted to this court, and I'm asking the court to take into consideration that evidence because the witness was credible. She credibly testified in front of this court as to what happened. She credibly testified to this court as to who Ms. Jones and Ms. Coker were to her and what happened on the day of the repast, Your Honor. So with that being said, Judge, I'm asking the court to take that testimony and the exhibits from the people's exhibits 1 through 3 and find Ms. Coker guilty of count 1, assault and battery. Yes, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. So, the people do have a burden to prove beyond a reasonable doubt, please, that this incident transpired the way the complaining witnesses, necessary witness would say that it happened. And since that necessary witness is the people's only witness, it's up to that witness to carry the people's burden of proof. The court already knows that. And I'm arguing to the court this afternoon that that has not happened. So this witness, with a lot of animosity between these people, a lot of difficult times behind them and ahead of them, trying to navigate and or ignore these relationships, whatever they're gonna do. They have difficulty behind them and they have difficulty ahead of them. That witness testified that she arrives at a venue, arrives at her dad's repast, that she and her brother paid for, upset to see Ms. Coker and Ms. Coker's mother present at the location. And the witness testified that she immediately starts in with Ms. Jones. The witness testified that she started a fight with Ms. Jones. And the witness testified that she's fighting with Ms. Jones for about 20 minutes. And that I'm not sure that the witness testified that Ms. Coker jumped in. But Ms. Coker testified credibly that she's sitting there with her grandmother, that witness comes in, starts in with her mother, starts a fight with her mother, and then Ms. Coker gets into that situation to try to stop the fight. That she gets hit in the process, but she says it's not Ms. Grant who hits her. Ms. Grant testified that she is uppercutting Ms. Jones. And that while she's uppercutting Ms. Jones, she is looking at her daughter. And that she sees her daughter, sees someone approach her daughter, and sees somebody hit her daughter, but while she sees somebody approaching her daughter, she doesn't stop fighting. She doesn't stop fighting until her daughter, according to her testimony, gets hit, and then she walks over, and she doesn't attend to her daughter, she starts attacking Miss Coker. Now, all that cumulatively, Judge, just when the people's only, their case rests upon the story of one person, that story has to make more sense. That story has to make more sense than everything else in order for the people to meet their burden. And it just doesn't. I think I heard two witnesses. Ms. Jones testified that she couldn't see what was going on because she's fighting. But Ms. Grant testified that she's fighting and looking at her daughter, but she also said, I didn't see something because you can't do two things at the same time. And I agree with that. You can't be engaged in some kind of, you can't be angry about people being at your dad's repast, so you don't want to be there. You can't start in with them verbally. You can't start a physical fight with them. You can't fight with them and look up while you're fighting, watch your child, see somebody approaching your child, stop fighting, go over to fight with that person instead of going to fight with your child. None of that makes any sense. That there's other people, other of Micah Bass's relatives who are supposed to be present at the time of this is happening, and they don't scoop up the baby, they don't get the little girl away from that situation, they just kind of let her stand there and watch her mom uppercutting somebody for about 20 minutes. What makes more sense, despite the video, the photograph that the people showed to the witness, with a little girl, who, I'm looking at the pictures that she showed, and I'm looking at the pictures that are admitted into evidence that don't appear to be the same child to me, different hairstyle. That child off in a corner somewhere. People at some tables over here. I don't even know that accurately depicts the scene at the time of this fight. But the witnesses, Ms. Grant's testimony, the way she tells the story does not make sense. The defendant doesn't have to take the stand. The defendant doesn't have to put on a defense. So her story, it doesn't have to make more sense than the people's witness. The people's witness's story, it just has to make sense, and it just doesn't. So it's very clear that unfortunately, something that was going on outside of Ms. Jones' control with her dad, something was going on outside of Ms. Grant's control with her dad, and unfortunately, these people were not able to come together and be a family, and they may not be able to do that at this point. But as to whether or not people with Ms. Grant's story have met their burden of proof, that Ms. Coker testified she didn't even really know LaToya Grant, let alone her child, that for some unknown reason, she would just randomly pick, she sees a child there, randomly picks that child and smacks that child, and then gets put out of the venue. And that Ms. Only thing, instead of going and tending to her baby, that Ms. Coker, that Ms. Grant goes for Ms. Coker. I'm having difficulty following it. And I don't think the trier of fact is supposed to have difficulty following me, even for the smarter than me. There's supposed to be a straight line in order for the people to meet their burden of proof, and there just isn't. That necessary witness's story has to make more sense. And it doesn't. All this is happening before the repast gets going. So we don't have all these other people who are, who come in and shed some light on. Micah at least has another person who loves her, who's present today, who wasn't able to help the trier of fact shed any light on the situation. Micah has at least another aunt who was present at the time of the incident, according to Ms. Bryant's story, who's not here to help the trier of fact shed light on the story. Whoever it is that's here to speak up for whatever did or didn't happen to Micah, it just has to make sense in order for the people to get their verdict. And it doesn't make sense the way Ms. Grant told the story, that Caitlin Coker just out of the blue randomly goes up and smacks this child, as this child is standing there, according to Ms. Grant, standing there watching her mom cover pets of money for 20 minutes. So I'm asking to find it.
Yes, Your Honor. So, Your Honor, there was testimony offered by Ms. Sharon Jones. And I just want to point out a couple pieces of information from that testimony that was offered by Ms. Jones. And when Ms. Jones took the stand, Ms. Jones testified that Ms. Grant is her dad's girlfriend's daughter. And that she never got proof that this was her actual sister. Okay. And then she testified that I think it was Lashara that was at this repast is someone who says she's the aunt. So that testimony is important, Judge, because there's clearly an implicit bias against Ms. Grant and these other people that were at the repast, because Ms. Jones testified that she didn't know any of these people at the repast. And she testified that, well, she didn't even actually testify. She never acknowledged Ms. Grant as her sister, even though she testified she met her when she was about 4 or 5. And then she testified that her father was dating Ms. Grant's mother at the time. And that was also interesting to me, Judge, and I don't even think the people even try to get the information, but Ms. Jones offered some interesting information, which was her father was dating Ms. Grant's mother, and that they were both involved in some drugs. And that's what they were involved in during the time of their relationship together. And that Ms. Grant and her siblings were taken away by the state. And I point that out again, Judge, because like the people said, there's some implicit bias between the parties. And that goes to show how Ms. Jones feels about Ms. Grant. And that goes to show what Ms. Jones's attitude is towards Ms. Grant. And that's important, Judge, and people are going to tie that up at the end. But I want to jump to Ms. Coker's testimony. Now, Ms. Coker got on the stand, and Ms. Coker gave up her right to remain silent, and she testified to the court. And the people are just a little confused with the testimony because Ms. Coker testified that she arrived at the repast and she didn't go to the cemetery. She arrived straight at the repast. And I keep saying her name is Lashara. I think it's Lashara or Lashara. The person who was asking her to set up and go get pops and juices and help decorate the repast, that she didn't even know who this person was. She never met this person before the repast or before the funeral arrangement. And I find that strange that she would be involved in this setup and this repast decorating with a person that she never met before. And that was a little confusing to the people, Judge. And there was also some testimony that there weren't a lot of people around during the time of the physical altercation that occurred between Ms. Coker and Ms. Grant. And Ms. Coker testified that the fight lasted about 20 minutes, which is a pretty long time for a fight to be going on. But she also testified that there were some male individuals that came after the fight and that tried to break up the fight at the end. Now, Judge, what's interesting is that this fight took place for 20 minutes, and Ms. Coker's testimony is that there was only her mother, Ms. Jones, her great-grandmother, and 2 people that were sitting up in the back. However, Judge, the people did offer a still shot of a video and show Ms. Coker, and Ms. Coker did say that was an accurate depiction of what the rental hall was. But when the people asked her if she saw the little girl in the video, which she stated that she did, she testified that there weren't any little children at the repast. So Judge, I'm pointing that out because there's a big time gap of this 20 minutes that this altercation was going on. And then when these male individuals came into the repast, but no one testified as to whether kids came afterwards, as to whether anyone else came afterwards. There was no testimony from either Ms. Jones or Ms. Copeland, Judge. And I think that's important because the witnesses that were offered by the defense were not credible. The witnesses that were offered by the defense did not give an accurate or truthful depiction of what really happened on the day of the repast trial. And Judge, I think that it's important for the court to pay attention to the testimonies because the defense witnesses weren't truthful and they weren't honest in their testimony. And I'm comparing that to the testimony from Ms. Grant. Because Ms. Grant told the court what happened. Ms. Grant honestly told the court that yes, there was a physical altercation between the parties for whatever reason. But she honestly told the court that as this altercation was happening between her and her sister, Ms. Jones, and it's funny because she refers to Ms. Jones as her sister, but Ms. Jones refers to her as somebody she allegedly her sister. And the testimony was truthful and honest from Ms. Grant, and she testified to the court that while she was having this physical altercation with Ms. Jones, that Ms. Coker approached her daughter and gave her open smack to the face. Now, Your Honor, I used to hear saying all the time that from parents that how you feel about me is how you feel about my children. And that's important, Judge, like people said, there's so much animosity between these family members and so much implicit bias towards Ms. Grant that it's clear from the testimony, Judge, that the witnesses didn't care much for Ms. Grant for whatever reason. And we're not here to sort out what those family issues are, Judge, or what those family issues were. But what we're here to do, Judge, is to explain what happened on the day of the repast. And what happened is that, Judge, for whatever reason, the witnesses felt how they felt about Ms. Grant, and they took that out on her daughter who was standing there while this altercation was going on. And while Ms. Jones and Ms. Grant were having this physical altercation, what Ms. Coker did was go up to Ms. Grant's daughter, her 2-year-old daughter, Micah Bass, and hit her open-handedly in the face. And Judge, like Ms. Stevenson said, there are no other family members on behalf of Ms. Micah Bass to tell the court what happened. But there is her mother, Ms. Latoya Grant, who's here today, who testified in front of this court as to what happened on May 13th, 2021. So, Your Honor, I'm asking the court to take that into consideration and again, find Ms. Coker guilty of assault or assault and battery, Judge. Thank you.
The court has had an opportunity to consider the charge against Ms. Coker, the testimony of the witnesses, the arguments of counsel, the exhibits of the people. And pursuant to the court rules, the court is ready to issue its verdict. The people have a burden to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that on or about May 13, 2021, at or near the location of 17850 Mount Elliott within the city of Detroit, County of Wayne, that Kaylin Lynise Coker committed one count of assault and battery against the Miss Micah Bass. In order to meet this burden, the people submitted one witness, 3 exhibits. And then, having no obligation to do so, the defense submitted 2 witnesses, one being the defendant who gave up her right to remain silent and testified in this case. The people's witness testified that she's the mother of the complainant. They went to this repast for her father. While there, she got into it with the individual she referred to as her sister. And, while she was fighting the individual that she refers to as her sister, she saw the defendant slap her daughter, who was 2 years old at the time of the incident, and who appropriately so was not presented to court for testimony, even though today she would be about 5, I think. So, court found, people's witness to be, credible, nothing that stood out, that will cause the court to not believe her credibility. And then I will address a couple of things that the defense brought up in their closing argument, which, with respect to some things about her testimony. But then, as I indicated, the defense, without any obligation to do so, submitted 2 witnesses. And then let's, address those witnesses. The first witness, I'm gonna be honest, I have no idea why she testified. I don't know what she added. I don't. I tried to look at it. She was at a repast for an individual that she said is her biological father. There were people at this pre-repast, who identified with the deceased as their biological father. These other people apparently knew each other. Lashara, Latoya, Junior, some other people who identified with this person as being their biological father. They knew each other. And then Miss Sharon Jones, she didn't seem to know anybody. But not only did she not know anybody, she don't like them. No, she don't like them. She kept referring to the people as, well, I don't have no proof that they is the child. I don't really know, because the whole thing sounds a little outside of my realm of comprehension. Because if I showed up to my biological father's funeral and I didn't have a relationship with him, and some people came up to me and said, it's my father and we must be sisters, I would say, oh, well, how you doing? I wouldn't be trying to ask for no DNA kit at the repast. That just confused me. But also, the fact that Lashara was apparently in charge of this repast, and she apparently identifies as a biological daughter of the deceased. Everybody seemed to acquiesce to Lashara without any question. But when Miss Sharon Jones testified, she is like saying that like the lady wasn't really her sister. Now, all right. So that kind of confused me. And then I didn't understand. So she comes to this repast and Miss Latoya Grant makes her intentions known as soon as she walked up in there. She like, why you here? get out, why you let my daddy's repass, da, 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 da. I don't know what the history of that is, but she didn't like it. She argued with him, she cursed at him. She got into this, thing with them. Apparently, she had maybe had paid for it, I don't know. But even if she paid for it with some insurance proceeds, the jury instruction, I always keep my book right here, it tells me to use my common sense and everyday judgment. The only way she could get some insurance proceeds to pay is if her name or somebody's name that is identifying with the deceased as their biological father, somebody's name had to be on the insurance policy to get the money. So even if she paid for it with insurance, I don't know, somebody had to do that, but she testified, and I guess her purpose was to come on here and say that she didn't see any children at this repast when she got there. That's the only thing I wrote down, that she didn't see any children at the venue when she got there. But that is neither here nor there, because she also testified that Miss Grant didn't get there till after she got there. So the fact that I didn't see children there when I got there means nothing. She came later. And then that's that. So I didn't really understand Ms. Jones's purpose. But what I did understand from Ms. Jones is the deep-seated animosity that is flowing through this deceased person's children. Okay, so then Ms. Coker gave up her right to remain silent. She testified that she came to the venue, that she and her mother and her great-grandmother came to the venue. And I understood from Ms. Jones's testimony that the grandmother that was there was like the mother of the deceased. Which seems to me like if there were any like issues about who children or whatever. I mean, I don't know, somebody could have just looked at grandma and say, Great, do you know these people? Because we had to repass them. None of these people look familiar to us. Okay, well, so, but despite the fact that nobody looked familiar, Ms. Coker testified that on site, without requesting a DNA kit, without any verification, she said, LaShara was in charge, she was my aunt, and she asked me to put the tablecloth on the thing. Now, nobody knows where LaShara got her authority. There's no testimony as to how LaShara got her authority. LaShara could just be good with events, like they said, LaShara, you do it, can you do food and stuff? But everybody except Ms. Jones accepted LaShara as a sibling. They did this, they got into a fight. Everybody says that they got into a fight. So now I have to double back to Ms. Grant's testimony. As I indicated, I said I found her credible, nothing unusual, nothing that just stood out. So now I'm gonna address some of the issues that perhaps came up with her testimony. She testified that she was fighting Ms. Jones and she, was, hitting her, uppercut. And then she said, while she was fighting her, she saw her little daughter watching her fighting and, she kept fighting. And then at a certain point, it's her testimony that she saw Ms. Coker walk up to her daughter and slap her. And when she saw that, she stopped fighting Ms. Coker's mother. And she went and started fighting, or at least I think she just said she swung at her. I don't know if the swinging took effect, but she said she swung her. Ms. Stevenson says in her closing, that when she saw Ms. Coker, according to her testimony, slap the daughter, she doesn't go see about the daughter, she goes and fights Ms. Coker. And that's not usual. And that's, you should go see about your child. And then I was immediately taken back to a time when my now 25, how old is my son, 25 or 26? My now 25 or 26-year-old son was like 5 years old. And I was in Ohio. I worked for the Detroit Police Department. And I was in Ohio in a place that was known for the Ku Klux Klan. I don't know why my friend took me there to go shopping at this outlet mall, because we'll do anything to get a deal. We go to this outlet mall. I'm looking down in a box. I'm looking in a box, trying to get these good, like 2,000 thread sheets that they had in this box for a good price. And my friend says, Lynise, that lady is talking to Marcus. I immediately flip up out the box. And I look toward the lady and say, who are you talking to? Don't talk to my son. I never addressed my son. I never said, son, what the lady saying to you? I never said, son, are you okay? I immediately said, don't talk to my son. If you have anything to say to that child, you come and talk to me, because that's my child. And that child, you know, I went all off on the BBN. Now y'all know that. I was like, that's a king's kid. And then the lady who was pregnant said, he called me despicable. And then I said, my son doesn't even know that word. I later found out I was wrong because he was quoting Thomas the Tank Engine, but that's besides the point. I said, my son doesn't even know that word. And even if he called you despicable, don't you say anything to my son. So now I get my son after I address the lady and almost fight her brother. And I come out in the hallway into the big place. And after I still did by the sheets, then I came out and I said to my son, what happened? Why was the lady talking to you? And you don't know, she saying you said despicable or something. And then my son says, Thomas the Tank Engine says, Henry, you're despicable. Oh, now we all bust out laughing because he probably did say it. What's the purpose of my story? When I see someone else, an adult, engaging with my child, I don't address my child first, I address the adult. Because why are you engaging with my child? So it is actually pretty reasonable to me that Ms. Grant would see her child get hit and immediately attack the person that's hitting her child, as opposed to trying to get her child out the way. That makes sense to me. Now, why Ms. Coker would do that, was swirling around all through this whole trial, ever since Ms. Ritter did her opening statement. I'm saying that don't even make sense. And continuing to say to myself, the people don't have to prove motive. So look and see if they're proving their case. The people don't have to prove motive. That's what the conversation I'm having with myself on the bench. And then Ms. Ritter kind of brought it home for me in her closing when she said, how you feel about me is how you feel about my children. And what I have seen is a lot of venom coming from Ms. Coker and her mother towards Ms. Grant. Well, from Ms. Coker's mother towards everybody. She don't like none of them kids. None of her father's children. She don't acknowledge. I don't know what that is, but she acknowledges none of them. But they all apparently acknowledge each other. So now I have to look at, well, I look at now the people's case, right? The people's case by itself, and then the people's case as the case as a whole. And if you know that I always say to a defendant before they take the stand, do you realize that I'm gonna use everything you testify to make my decision? And then they say yes, and then they testify. So let me tell you what about Ms. Coker's testimony that has helped me to make my decision. Okay. So for both of the individuals. Nobody, and again, I know that Ms. Coker has no obligation whatsoever to present testimony or evidence to the court, but when she does, now the court looks at it, and I don't know why y'all was trying to prove there wasn't no kids at this repast, because most times there are kids at the repast. And it probably was enough to say, I didn't see her daughter there. Of course, I definitely didn't hit her daughter. And the rest is the rest. So the two people that I didn't find credible was Ms. Jones and Ms. Coker. And here's a part of the reason. They both testified that they were in this fight. And everybody said the fight was about 20 minutes. That's a long fight. But when the fight was going on, ending, whatever the case may be, a group of guys came in. One of them was Junior, who Ms. Jones said is the gentleman sitting in the courtroom with the red sleeves. And when they came in, they put Ms. Jones out and Ms. Coker out, right? I don't know what happened to Grandma, but the people escorted Ms. Jones out and they escorted Ms. Coker out. And then let me get the names right in a minute. Ms. Grant called the police, and the police came within 15 minutes, and in 15 minutes, she said, that lady slapped my daughter. But Ms. Coker and Ms. Jones they never called the police. They never said, these people put me out of my father's repast. I don't know. However, I've indicated in the past, and I'm going to indicate today, it is possible for the people to meet their burden with just one witness. And sometimes when people, have one credible witness and some exhibits with a little girl with a black eye or a swollen eye, then sometimes if they were probably nicer to some of them other family members, the family members might have said, we saw, what's the name? We saw Miss Makaya that day. She didn't have no slap on her eye. I don't know who would slap the girl eye and then just out the blue blame it on Miss Coker, but the thing about that also is this. Usually, a lie can't withstand. Usually somebody lying, they're gonna, change. That's how the people get caught up and get convicted And when the police, keep on, interviewing them, and then they say different things, they say different stuff. I didn't find that to be the case. I think maybe even if it was the case, somebody would have brought it to my attention and said, well, didn't you tell the police on this day that this is what happened? I didn't find that, and I do find Miss Grant to be credible, and I therefore find Miss Coker guilty of one count of assault or assault and battery as to Micah as normally because, well, the victim isn't here because she was only 2 years old. And normally I would offer immediate sentencing, but I'm not offering it, and I'm gonna tell you why. So, I am gonna order a pre-sentence investigation. I'm gonna set the matter for sentencing. And that's when I'm also gonna get an opportunity to read the police report, the investigative report, because of course I would never read it before the trial, because there could be some things in it that are inadmissible, so I haven't read it. I haven't read the investigator's report. So the investigator's report would be a part of the pre-sentence investigation. And I don't know, maybe some of the other family members might decide to speak up one way or the other. I don't know, they may or may not. Also, I want to see if I mean, if your baby get hit in the eye, seems like you're supposed to take them to children's hospital, but I don't know if they did or not. So I would definitely be interested in any type of medical information as to little Miss Micaiah. Okay? So the court is going to set the matter for sentencing. How many do I have on April 2nd? I'm writing in a different book this time, you know, it just bear with me. I'm gonna get rid of this other book by the weekend, okay? How many do I have? Let's say April the 2nd or 3rd?
20 on April 2nd.
Potential jury trial.
14 on April 3rd.
We're gonna set the matter for sentencing on April 3rd. Pre-sentence investigation. Ms. Coker can go across the hall and schedule the pre-sentence investigation, okay? Or see if they can schedule it. What day did I just say? Okay. And I think I want to do the sentencing in person. So I'm gonna set it at 9:02. Ms. Grant, is that your, okay. Ms. Grant, will, for the purposes of sentencing, be considered the victim in terms of giving a victim impact statement if she wants to. Because am I correct that the child is five?
She'll be 5 every 3rd.
Oh.
That's her birthday.
That's her birthday. Okay, well, let's pick a different day. Let's pick a different day. Interesting. Why do I have a line for big? Is that open today?
Yeah. everything.
Okay. Well, the next week I'm partly out of town and I don't. All right, let's go with, April 15th. Oh, that's taxes day. I might need to be still doing my tax. Are they doing 15th still? That'd be stressful, but I guess we still have to work.
5.
Let's put it on April 15th. And I'm gonna tell you, I don't wanna hear from the child. So I technically she is the victim, but I don't wanna hear from her. I just feel, I don't know, I feel like that could be like a false memory or something more. I don't really wanna hear from the child, but I'll hear from her mother if she wants to speak. Okay, anything further?
Nothing on behalf of Ms. Coker, thank you, Your Honor.
All right, we're all set. So we're definitely gonna, right, split the. Split them up, so they can meet first. I need to look up where I get that. So.
Okay.
Well, I wanted to give a date for this component. Two things. I need a date for this. And then, I mean, if they want me to fill in a date, yeah, that they're not gonna be available, that don't make sense. So. Yeah.
Okay.
Anything, Barbara?
No, thank you.
All right. I don't know nothing from Mr. Mariah, he don't know.
Yes. Oh, yes.
You didn't have to be right this second.